Welcome to Revenue Rehab, your one-stop destination for collective solutions to the biggest challenges faced by marketing leaders today. Now head on over to the couch, make yourself comfortable, and get ready to change the way you approach revenue. Leading your recovery is modern marketer, author, speaker, and chief operating officer at Tegrita, Brandi Starr.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Revenue Rehab. I am your host, Brandi Starr, and we have another amazing episode for you today. I am joined by Melissa Moody, a full-stack marketing executive with a profound commitment to user-centric innovation. Melissa followed her 14-year tenure in large partner marketing at Google with a role as founder and CMO at tech startup Gated. In her current role at Matcha, a Commsor brand, she champions the concept of go-to-network with a focus on the role of building connections for professional growth. Additionally, she is the host of the Two Pizza Marketing podcast for small team marketers and recently launched a bootstrapped social advocacy tool. Melissa, welcome to Revenue Rehab. Your session begins now.
I am so glad to be here, Brandi. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited to have you. It's a total fangirl moment because I love all of the work that you're doing, as well as the Two Pizza Marketing podcast, because I am running a Two Pizza Marketing team. There's 3 of us total. So it is always great help and great insight. So really excited to have you here on the couch. And before we jump into our topic today, I like to break the ice with a little woo-saw moment that I call buzzword banishment. So what buzzword would you like to get rid of forever?
Well, you told me I could pick anything from it doesn't have to be professional. It could be anything.
Yes, anything.
Well, then could I magically make the word bruh disappear?
Yes.
I have proteins. And, I went immediately to motion and drinking from the fire hose and circle back. And I said, no, what would I really want to disappear? It's bruh.
Yes, I am totally with you. I get called bruh at least 20 times a day. Yet if I call him bruh, he's like, oh, don't say that. And I'm like, oh, it's a double standard here. So we definitely will not say bruh during this conversation. And if I can find a way to banish it in the real world, trust me, I will. So I love that. Most people pick your typical words, but that is one that truly gets under my skin. So I am all in. Well, normally I would ask you what brings you to Revenue Rehab, but you are here for an extra special episode as we celebrate International Women's Day. And, a lot of people talk about all the air quotes made up holidays. And I love so many of them because they often recognize groups of people, events in our history, et cetera, that are really important to acknowledge. And one of the things that I am passionate about and always have been is helping women, especially in their businesses and their careers. And so when my team and I started talking about International Women's Day and doing a special podcast episode, you were, of course, the first person that comes to mind. And there's so much that I want to talk to you about. But before I jump into my questions, I believe in setting intentions. It gives us focus, it gives us purpose, and most important, it gives our audience an understanding of what they should expect from our discussion. So what's your best hope for today? What would you like people to take away as we talk about really empowering women?
I think my intention is something that Wednesday Women is really built around. I'll give it a single word and then I'll explain a bit. I want to say uplift, because there's been a lot of struggle in the history of women's, achieving what we're achieving, breaking through barriers, dealing with challenges. There's still a lot of inequity, but so much of what we're founded on, and so much of what I believe personally as well, is a lot can be achieved by raising up and looking up and uplifting and inspiring and like the positive side of things. I know there's a major ugly side to all of these struggles and challenges, but the intention that I have, especially today, is to talk about just how we can do better, how we can take what we've already done so far and just keep the momentum building and shower each other with celebration and shower each other with love. We always say every day should be Women's Day, and it should. It's the season that you want to keep remembering all year long. But especially on International Women's Day, I think it should be a day of real celebration and uplifting and, patting on the back and congratulations and thanking. So for me, a lot of positivity, a lot of vibes around positivity here today.
Awesome. Well, you already mentioned Wednesday Women. And for those people that are not familiar, first off, shame on you. But for those that don't already know what Wednesday Women is, please tell us, because I know it started off as something small and seems to really be becoming a movement. So share with the audience what Wednesday Women is and why you and Leslie started it. Give us the background.
Of course. And no shame on anyone because we're really just getting started. So it's not something that's been around and you missed. Maybe about a year and a half ago, this wonderful woman named Leslie Greenwood had posted on her LinkedIn feed, "I'd like to see more women CEOs in my feed." She just wasn't getting enough of them. We all know what our LinkedIn feeds can start to look like if there's not enough female voices there. And she received an incredible response, and she started gathering those names of who to follow and who should be in her feed. And she shared that freely with a lot of people for quite a while. Probably about 6 months ago, I posted in my feed, "I'd like to see more women founders." I was in a founder role at the time and really wanted to juice up my feed with more women in that same role. Well, Leslie, who I did not know, dropped in on the comment thread and said, "Hey, here's this spreadsheet of incredible women to follow. I posted something similar. Let's chat." Two busy women had a chat in the middle of their week, and we really felt passionate about just amping up the presence of women in feeds and really finding a little bit better balance for a lot of folks. Now, we both said, "Okay, that's great, but we have day jobs. We're extremely busy. We don't have time to do anything." And before we left, we said, we should do something, just a small pebble into the water. Let's make a few ripples, and maybe it'll cause something bigger. And what happened was once a week on Wednesdays, as you might imagine, we started featuring an extraordinary executive woman that other people should know about. Now, an important part of our mission is we don't want those women to have to do more. They're already doing so much. I don't know if I can swear on here, but they're out there kicking ass. And
Yes.
we don't need them to put in more time or money or effort. We need other people to know about how awesome they are. So our entire mission is just about shining a spotlight on extraordinary executive leaders. And we did that once a week. Well, that momentum swelled rapidly. So the little ripple of something so simple and so doable every week has really turned into quite a wave of momentum. And we're just rolling with it. We both, again, still have busy day jobs, and continuing to invest intentionally in ways that we can spotlight great women is the mission that we're on. And the incredible outpouring of others who are excited to support that has been really something of note.
Yeah, and I learned something new. I did not know that you and Leslie did not previously know each other.
We actually created an LLC together before ever meeting in person. So there's
Wow.
yeah.
That is pretty awesome. And, another example of just how awesome you guys are and, how much you believe in the mission behind it. And I know I follow the list and try to make sure that I follow as many of them. I've had a couple of the Wednesday women on my podcast. So I've had some really great conversations, and it is so telling of how important this is, because something super simple. Like, I remember when you guys started, like, the posts were really basic before you added in like some graphics and, a little bit of fanciness to liven it up a bit. But initially it was just some pretty basic LinkedIn post of, about this wonderful woman and why you should follow them. And to see it catch on and consistently, people who are past Wednesday women each Wednesday will like weigh in, or they'll tag other people, or you see the shares, and there is this momentum that makes it really clear that it's very necessary, and that as successful and accomplished as all of these women are, there is still a need for that uplifting. And I love that word. So that people actually know what's happening.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to just dig a little into your own career, because I've followed you for a while. I really was into the mission behind Gated and seeing what you were doing there. And I know that a lot of your career has been very purpose driven and focused. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey and also some of those places where you may not have felt, amplified or uplifted or put in the positions that you should be in. So let us in a little bit more on Melissa.
Well, if I hit the rewind button a ways back, so my first career actually coming out of college, I was a teacher for many years. I had my master's in education, which is a little bit of my little known trivia because now I've been in the tech world for quite a while. I love education, still extremely passionate about it, very involved in it in a lot of ways. But in 2006, I moved to Seattle and I was looking to run faster. Anybody who knows me knows that I run very, very fast. And education is a wonderful field, but it doesn't traditionally run very fast. So I made the switch to marketing in 2006, working for a little company you might know called Google. Google was actually quite little in Seattle at the time. There's only about 35 of us in the office in Seattle when I started.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And I made the move into marketing because similar to teaching, you have a message and you have an audience and you need your audience to understand that message. So made the move into marketing, spent 14 years at Google, just under 14 years. Really loved my entire time there. But you mentioned a lot of my career has been purpose driven. And I think actually the way I would rephrase that is it's been the continuing thread for me is human driven, is end user of a product driven. And I believe that really started at Google. We used to have a phrase that said, focus on the user and all else will follow. And call it brainwashing, call it what you will. I truly believe that for building products, for go-to-market strategy, for running a business. If you're focusing on the human at the end of whatever it is you're doing, you will see success. And I mean rabid focus, not, oh, we did a little thing. I mean, are you talking to them? Are you building for them? Are you asking them how it meets their needs? So for me, it's funny because when I say purpose or mission driven, I think of, working for nonprofits or something super self-sacrificing, I suppose, which I know that's a whole nother conversation. But for me, it's been more around working on products that really solve human needs or starting companies that really solve human needs. And sometimes that falls into kind of a B2B tech solution. It might not always be super I'm saving the world type mission, but the purpose of building a user focused, something that solves a human need, that is something that I absolutely have threaded through my career. So did many years at Google. Again, I like to run fast. And at that point, Google was so big, it wasn't even running fast anymore for my standards. So I threw myself into the world of entrepreneurship. I have been a CMO and founder at Gated, as you mentioned, really trying to change some pretty large embedded consumer behaviors. And then, yes, I have been very busy with a couple of, I'll call them side projects, but as you know, Wednesday Women has a lot of importance in my life. And my day job is working on another product that I truly believe solves human needs. At Matcha, we are building a platform that really leverages one-to-one human connections and using those to build your network and to grow professionally. So I will always find a thing that meets a need, and then I will throw my whole self into it. That's very much the story of my career.
And I want to continue. I love the term human driven, and that real need, and sort of shifting it back to the role of women. And, some people will argue that this focus on women, there's no men's group or International Men's Day or any of these sort of things. I have heard some people argue that this division, so to speak, actually hurts more than it helps.
Mm-hmm.
And that, we've gotten to a place where there's just not a need for this. And these are, I always like to talk about the naysayers because, that it's what we're up against in general. And so Why do you think having such a focus, why is there no Monday men to match the Wednesday women? Like, why is this so important? Like, what is that human need that is not being fulfilled that makes this work so valuable and have that huge ripple effect?
Yeah, a little bit of context. I mean, I'll be very upfront and say most of the best bosses I've ever had were men. My teammates growing up were all men. I was actually the coxswain on a men's heavyweight rowing team. So I've surrounded myself, and I have two brothers. I'm raising a son. I am all about, uplifting amazing men. And to a certain extent, I would say I would follow a Monday men if it was about talented, caring, authentic people doing excellent stuff. I believe what we don't have, the discrepancy, is the volume right now of seeing these extraordinary women. The volume of men right now who go on and speak on LinkedIn and have their voices is so massively above the actual volume, literally the numbers. Honestly, my hot take on this is a lot of it comes down to the numbers. If you have one bad boss and he's a man, you've probably had 3 other good bosses that were men. But if you have one bad boss and she's a woman, it colors everything because maybe you haven't had 5 female bosses. So I truly believe there are great examples of leadership and great examples of executives on both sides of the aisle. But what I don't think we have enough of is the number of examples. Like, let's flood the market with incredible women doing incredible things. And we can talk about why that is. I think there's a lot of systemic reasons why we don't have those examples that definitely need addressing. The big one for me, I will give my own story here, is twofold that I see. And I wonder if people would add to this list of why this is true. The first is I am so busy. I work so hard and I go all the time. And between my side projects and my day job and my children, there is no time left to quote unquote toot my own horn on social. I don't have time to get out there and do it. Now I do. I slog through it because I feel it's important to put examples out there. But that's a big barrier, I think, for a lot of women. They are running on all cylinders and we don't have the time. The second is definitely the psychological questioning, who am I to share? And I'd love to see some research on this. I won't come with the hard data, but I do fundamentally believe that women don't always feel their experiences are as share worthy, or men maybe potentially feel more free to share their experiences. And we need to unlock that box, right? Because the shareable experiences that all of these executive women are having are so worthy of being heard. So I've found really those have been 2 big blockers as to why we just don't have the numbers to flood the market with good examples. Maybe you've got some other thoughts on other barriers, but that's been one of them that I've found.
Yeah, I would definitely agree on both of those, with the second one being the bigger play. Because, they say what gets done is what's important to you. And so, we make time, kind of like how you were saying, you slog through it and get it done. So time is definitely a barrier, but I would say it is feeling like you have something to share, that your opinion, your experience is different enough, important enough. It is that the concept of TED Talks is ideas worth sharing. And it's like really actually feeling that you have that. And I would definitely agree that there is, you look at the term, a lot of people hate the term imposter syndrome, but you have more women that talk about that by far than men. If you do look at the numbers, you look at boardrooms, C-suites, leadership teams, stages. So you look at conference, speakers, like they are in most cases, unless the, people are really making a focused effort to bring in more women, they are dominated by men. And so there is a little bit, psychologically that says, maybe my story isn't worth sharing. Maybe my experience isn't different or unique, or, I don't have something to say.
Yes.
So I do agree. And I would also like to hear if others, are seeing other barriers that come to that. So What do you say to the women who are listening and they're like, yes, that's exactly how I feel. I don't know that I have anything to say. What do you say to them? What advice do you offer, or, words of encouragement to those people that are like, yeah, that's me?
I mean, if it does come back to what we do with Wednesday Women. I would say just do something small. Start small. Put something out into the universe. Maybe you have a speaking opportunity that you weren't going to take. Maybe you submit your bio to be on a podcast that you really, really love. Maybe you just start posting regularly, twice a week on LinkedIn, just to add your little pebble to this pile. We need more examples. We need authenticity. We don't need you to be the best person who's ever run a demand generation campaign. We need you to be someone who's done it and to talk about it and to talk about your lived experience. So I would say my advice would be find something small. And more than that, find something small that you can keep doing, that it's not a one-time thing. So think about, is there a goal you might want to set for the year of speaking on 2 podcasts? Or is there a goal you want to set about posting just once a week on LinkedIn? Something small to put yourself out there so others can see. And don't judge yourself about what it is. Just start being out there. I guarantee you will have comments from young people looking, saying, wow, thanks for posting this. Or from someone in your network who says, I never knew you worked on that. It will have an impact. It might just be a ripple to start, but it will have an impact.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you say that, because I have seen some of those. Like, I remember when I started doing video, and this has been many years now, but I was so uncomfortable on video. It was like, I didn't like looking at myself. And then when I would watch it back, I'm like, oh, my voice and this and that and the other. And I had to, very similar to what you said, I had to convince myself, just do it. And I can remember, starting to post things, and it was all the time. It was like, just hit post and like, don't look at it. And, people joke, because now I do most of my videos in like one take. I don't, reiterate. And it's like, because initially I had no choice. I wasn't going to post it if I watched it. So it was like, record, send. And I've had people, I talked to someone recently who I worked with over a decade ago, and he was like, man, I'm so impressed with what you've been doing over the past years and this. And I was like, we haven't talked. What are you talking about? Or people that are like, I had a guy that was like, I'd love to work with you one day. I look up to you. Like, your advice has helped me out of a jam. And I'm like, no idea who this guy is. And so you're right. Like, no matter what you are sharing, how basic or complex, there is someone watching that you are touching and impacting, even when you don't realize it.
Yes. And I think the desire to create these massive waves also often just holds everybody back. I mean, they see podcasts with hundreds of thousands of listeners. They see people with 200,000 following on LinkedIn, and they say, well, I'm never going to do that, so I won't do anything. Not true. We need everybody out there kind of creating lots and lots of ripples, and it will add up.
Yeah, I mean, you use podcasts as an example. I can remember starting this podcast thinking like, I got to get to, 10,000 listeners in the first 7 days. And, oh, am I ever going to get there? And we worked with a consultant when we launched this. And I can't remember the exact number, but it was like 68 or 75 listeners in the first 7 days puts you in the top 11% of podcasts.
Yes.
So basically less than 100 people listening in a 7-day period puts you in the top 11%. Like, that blew my mind, because I was like, I could do that. Like,
I know there was something else about
60 people.
There was something else about, like, if you make more than 7 episodes, if you even publish more than 7 episodes, something like 90% of podcasts never get past episode 7. So
yeah,
pat on the back and keep trucking.
Yes, I'm coming. We're nearing within the next, I forgot how many weeks, but soon I'm going to hit 100 episodes. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy to think like, wow, like, doing it weekly, 100 means I've been doing this almost 2 years now. Like, I never thought doing episode 1 that we'd get there. But I remember, getting to episode 10, we like internally celebrated, because we're like, we're better than, whatever huge percent of podcasts just by what we've done.
Yeah.
So I want to shift gears a little bit for the men listening, or even other women, like because I know I've talked to some men who recognize, the differences in how women are treated or the opportunities, and they want to do something to help there be more equity, to help to uplift more women. And so some people will say, like, what can I do? And they may not be committed enough to launch a Wednesday Women or something on a big scale, but thinking about those people who are like, I know some amazing people that I'd like to uplift as well. What do you say to them? Like, what are ways that people can really help to, uplift and bring people along?
Well, I do think uplifting others is one of the best content strategies out there right now too. So if we're talking to people who are actually running content teams or running social media, consider how uplifting others, specifically in this case, if we want to put the emphasis on women, uplifting women can be a part of your content strategy. So by that, I mean, if you're spotlighting successful clients, do you have a balanced roster, right? If you are supporting, folks who are great customers of yours, are you uplifting people who are of both genders, right? If you're hosting an event, and I had an event that will go unnamed come to me the other day, and they said, oh, we need to talk with you at Wednesday Women because we have a panel that's all men, and it wasn't just a panel. It was like their whole agenda was all men. And I said, well, first of all, that's the first thing to do is ask. If you observe, so step one is observe. And if you notice there's a discrepancy, ask for help. Like, ask how you could do better. Great step right there, right? Just try to do a little bit better if you notice there's a gap. The second point there is, if you're sitting on that and you haven't asked, that's where I start to question people, because it's not that hard to just go out and be like, interesting. We have 9 men and 1 woman. Is there anyone I could talk to? You'd be surprised at how many people just never even blink at that. And this extends just in general to your approach to life. But I think it's really a great way to think about your content strategy. It's a great way to think about event strategy. There are so many talented examples of women in any field on any topic right now that if you're having trouble finding them, just ask someone in your network. Heck, ping Wednesday Women. I don't care. It's not really our business model, but we'll help you out. Call Brandi. We'll figure it out. But observe and then ask for help. And I mean, how many times in this world do we just think we know better and we truck along and we do everything? And this, you could extend this to any topic, I'm sure, but observe and ask for help. There's nothing wrong with it. And in fact, it could really increase your network in unexpected ways. So,
yeah. And I think the other piece, like in asking, because sometimes you're not always the coordinator, but I was having a conversation with a male acquaintance, and we were just kind of chatting, and he was getting ready to sit on a panel. And it was at an event, and he was sitting on 2 different panels. And so it was like the host plus 4 on each panel. And in that, all men, both hosts were men, the 4, and he had noticed it. So he had observed.
He observed.
And, he was like, man, he's like, he was just kind of ranting, like, I'm preparing for this panel and looking at it like we all are very similar. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He was like, it's all men. We're all from the same area. If you look at our backgrounds, like our work history, they're from the same kinds of companies. Like, this seems like there should be some, diversified thought here. And I was like, did you bring that up to the organizer? And he was like, well, no, I just was asked to be on the panel. Yeah. And I was like, well, I was like, they may not be able to change it this far in because they may have solidified all their people. So you may not make an impact now. I was like, but if you raised it to say, hey, you ever thought about, some varying opinions? Because from what it sounded like, even the 4 men, there was no variation between them. So it's like, even if you were going to get 4 guys, try to at least
Different
some
perspective.
different backgrounds. And I was like, that will help the organizer recognize. I was like, because clearly they have not noticed, or they're okay with the fact that there is no diversity here. I was like, and I'd venture to say, if you look at the rest of the event, it's probably more of the same.
Yep.
It's like, so you need to just say something. I was like, because they could add a fifth person and just throw in a woman or some form of diversity. And he was like, oh, good point. I should at least bring it up. And so I really like that advice of like, observe and ask.
And ask. Yeah. And it makes better content. It makes it richer. He was already noticing that it was all going to be the same points, probably repeated over. I mean, I'm assuming if you come with the same perspective and the same backgrounds, you're going to have the same points. So it makes your content richer. It makes your events more applicable to a larger audience. There's just so many fundamental benefits to that. I have one more to do. And this goes, I will do this all day. This goes on both sides of the gender aisle. But one of our missions in Wednesday Women is to raise up the authentic, to raise up the people that really, are speaking from a place of, I've lived it, I've been there, I've done it, I'm sharing my real story, not just the Instagram perfect. And so my other action is like point out, or maybe even call out the Instagram perfect, pardon my language, BS, because there's so much platitude and perfection and doing it all just right. And a lot of that voice that, we call it I don't know if you heard the term broetry on LinkedIn, but that's what I think people think of when they think of broetry. It's like, everything's great. I raised all this money, whether that is a man or a woman. I've seen it on both sides, but it's very heavily biased right now, especially on LinkedIn. Call it out or take it out of your feed. Like, stop listening to that. Listen to stories of success. Listen to stories of failure. Listen to people who don't give advice, but give their experience. Yeah. I think the more we get to real on any side of things, it will improve all of us. And I definitely think real stories is where women shine, because we have so much lived experience that needs to be shared.
Yeah. And even, I think it's one of those things that women as well, because if we just look at like gender norms, we have such a diverse experience in caring for children, caring for our parents, coordinating families, like all these different things that happen outside of work. And those lived experiences play a role in our professional lives and some of the examples and things that we've been through as well. So I definitely agree with you there. And the broetry on LinkedIn, some days I just have to close the window and then go back and like hide, unfollow. And I do love
feed is a thing. Like, everybody curate your feeds. It's not saying they're terrible people. You just don't need to follow it if it's all fluff and
and all of this is the only way you can do this thing. And it's like, there's so many variations of everything. And so that's one reason that I do love TikTok, and how people are, in the business community are using TikTok, because TikTok is it is what it is. Like, it is the opposite of LinkedIn. I mean, opposite of Instagram, where, you're on there, no makeup, no fancy backgrounds, like just talking to people, or, being goofy, or, whatever it is, it brings out more of the authenticity. And I think that is so needed, and even more so needed for women who are trying to get themselves out there, and, to be amplified and uplifted, and because it does help people relate in a much stronger way.
I did not think an outcome of our talk was that you're going to bring me slowly back to TikTok, but good job. That was
as much time as I waste on there. I absolutely love TikTok.
This episode sponsored by TikTok.
Yeah, I was going to say, hey, if I could get some of those sponsorship dollars, I would totally take it. But no, I think that is so important. And if nothing else, I think what I echo here that you said in the beginning is wanting people to actually think about the amazing people who are around them, especially, so, not just the women, but especially the women in looking for ways to be able to insert them, whether it's individuals, to, refer them, to recommend them, to promote them, to share, or whether it's just situations like the example I gave in recognizing there's no women involved and being able to raise that hand.
Yes.
Because I do think the more people that do the kinds of things you're saying, the more it gives women the space to be authentic
Mhm.
and to be comfortable in being able to share their stories.
Mhm. Well said.
Well, talking about our challenges is just the first step, and nothing changes if nothing changes. And so in traditional therapy, the therapist gives the client some homework, but here at Revenue Rehab, we like to flip that on its head and ask you to give us some homework. So I know you've kind of given us some actions around observe, ask, and be authentic, but I'd like your one thing for those people that are listening and they are like, I know some amazing people. I want to, help to uplift and bring more women to the table, into the room. What advice do you give? What's the one thing that you would suggest that people do?
Let me give a small and a large. So if you need a small today, whoever's listening, write one of your public outputs. So maybe it's in your newsletter, maybe it's your podcast, maybe it's your LinkedIn post. Make one of those purely uplifting someone else who is fantastic. Call them out, talk about what makes them incredible. And by the way, this is specifically, especially with International Women's Day, this better be a lady for this particular homework. So go ahead and pick someone who stands out in your mind as a shining star that others should know about and simply uplift. Create some element of your content and put it out into the world that highlights this other person with no expectation in return. This is, we're not wanting to get affiliates or co-marketing sponsorships. Just put her out there. Be the uplifter. On a larger note, I would say if you're especially at a company or you have budget, invest in some of these groups that are doing things at larger scale. And that might be investing in a podcast that features these incredible women. That might be, heck, sponsoring something like Wednesday Women that is trying to make a difference. It might also just be investing in something internal to your company that supports women. But especially in light of International Women's Day, on the larger, homework, if you have some budget, even a small amount can go a long way toward making a difference in creating more uplift and shining the spotlight. So we're shining a spotlight. It's either at your own little tiny content creation level or at a slightly larger, more put your money where your mouth is type level. I think those are both hopefully good homeworks.
I love it. And so right now, as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, you have an action to share. And I'm already thinking, I'm like, oh, I got a list of a few that I want to talk about.
Maybe it's a month-long homework, everyone. Maybe it's 30 days from all of us. Go big.
We can go through the rest of March and just continue to share. But I do think that is a great one because you never know what sort of doors you may open for that person with something so simple that only takes you a couple of minutes.
Yes.
And, it really can change someone's life or their career trajectory in a positive way. Well, Melissa, I have enjoyed our discussion so much, but that's our time for today. But before we go, tell people how they can connect with you. I know you're working on so many things, so give us the shameless plugs so that we can continue to support.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, I do post on LinkedIn, so I'm on LinkedIn. You can also find me at my company is called Matcha, and so my profile on Matcha is Matcha. That's like the T, MATCHA.SO. My profile is at /Moody. My last name is Moody. So you can find out more about me there. I suppose the shameless promo would be we're building something really neat at Matcha that is giving people a platform for better one-to-one connections. And so much of what we talked about is really understanding the real human. And there's such an important element of our personal growth, but also our professional growth and our corporate success if we're really building on human connections as a foundation for growth. And so come and see what we're doing at Commsor. Come and check out what we're building at Matcha. Would love to follow up with anyone who wants to know more. And thank you so much for having me. What a wonderful topic to dive into today.
Yes. So we will make sure to link to both your LinkedIn and Matcha so that people can connect. Well, so glad to finally get you on Revenue Rehab. I've wanted to talk to you for quite some time, but I had to find just the right topic because you do so many amazing things.
Thank you.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. I hope you have enjoyed my conversation with Melissa. I can't believe we're already at the end. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Revenue Rehab with your host, Brandi Starr. Your session is now over, but the learning has just begun. Join our mailing list and catch up on all our shows at revenuerehab.live. We're also on Twitter and Instagram at Revenue Rehab. This concludes this week's session. We'll see you next week.